Hello, everyone. This is Carlos Wante with another Creature Talk. This Creature Talk is going to be about the work I did for the movie It, Andy Muschietti's It, um, specifically for Pennywise, not for the makeup, but I guess you'd describe it for his performance uh, and the things that he would do and how he would transform. It, the remake of the older TV show. It was a miniseries. Uh, when this particular project came to me, I, to be honest, I wasn't that excited about it because I wasn't. Uh, I know that a lot of people are fans of the original TV miniseries. I was not. I'm not a fan of clowns at all. It's not a thing. Um, uh, Although I have some acquaintances of mine that do fantastic work with cartoon type characters, Todd Shore, and people that know how to work in that world and make it look surreal. Um, I worked with Ralph Bakshi back in the day and on Cool World, and I had an experience working on there with the cartoon guys, right? Uh, and watching them make horror characters out of cartoons. And I was designing characters for the project, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun, but never had an opportunity to go back to that. Um, when this project came, I didn't even bring that up in my memory because I only thought of the miniseries uh, for it. So when they started talking to me, my first meeting with Andy uh, and the VFX liaison, uh, they sent me off in this direction, and immediately I pulled up in my memory uh, that experience that I had drawing these cartoon characters that were on the horror side, right? Another illustrator I got to work with back in the day was Everett Peck. Uh, Not directly, but we worked on the same show. It was the Ghostbusters, the first season that I got to work on the animated series. Um, and he did cartoony characters that were on the surreal and horror side, not gore. I'm talking, they were just scary characters that were drawn in a cartoony way. Um, Pretty cool. I really do like that stuff, actually. Um, there's not an opportunity to draw that very much, but it's still pretty fun to go there because you get to loosen up when you draw. You're not stuck, you know, um, in structure of a human being, or uh, you get to you get loosened from structure, anyways, to a degree, um, because there's no joints, for the characters. Anyway, so about this project in particular, uh, they wanted me to draw Pennywise, but the makeup had already been designed to a degree. I mean, they were pretty sure with the design for the makeup, and I asked about it. But when I saw what they were doing, honestly, I saw the drawing um, that Andy had done, and it was done. It was just a little line drawing that he had done, but it was nailed. There was nothing for me to do there, and I saw some of the Photoshop that they were playing around with, and they were just doing what they were trying to be creative beyond what Andy had given them. But when they did what Andy asked them to do exactly, or not even asked them, just went directly from his drawing, it was nailed. That's pretty much what you saw on the screen. Uh, when they went beyond that, it didn't work anymore. It looked like they were just trying to add stuff to what was already a classic design. So I have to give that design completely to Andy, um, even more than the makeup group that worked on it, I would say. Andy's little drawing that he had done, it was already there. They nailed it. So he nailed it, actually, I should say, and they did a great job with that. So that was already the, you move that off to the side. So they came to me and asked me just to draw. What would Pennywise do? Um, and like I said, the design was pretty much nailed, but they were still working on it. So I didn't marry myself to it uh, until I was maybe 3/4 of the way through the project, right? Um, so here we go. I'll start with the first drawing. And my first kind of impression that I started, and it started me on a road. As soon as I did this little drawing, uh, I started. It started me. I mean, I felt like I was thrown right into the world, right, of where I was going to live in this particular project. The one thing that I did was, and this is the first time I had ever done it for any project, was draw in a moleskin sketchbook. And the reason that I did that is that I wanted, well, I was a couple reasons. I was trying to, because I had been drawing with for most all of my career with the Prisma Blue, uh, indigo blue pencil from Prismacolor. And it's a wax pencil on a marker paper that is, they go together beautifully. I mean, honestly, I still love it's still one of my favorite ways to draw. Just because those two go really well together. The problem is that that paper isn't very archival, and it gets damaged very easily. And I only used graphite to render in, and I don't really render anything anymore. So I wanted to find a way to sketch with graphite because it's a little bit, especially because it goes well on the moleskin. The moleskin and graphite together are a perfect marriage. The paper, it just receives the pencil really well. That moleskin drawing paper. Uh, Tried that with the indigo blue wax pencil, and the grain is still too. Um, it's still too much for that pencil. Um, Different leads, different colors give you different types of. Uh, there's a different hardness to each color, right? In Prismacolor, they're not all the same, and you have to find the right color. So it's not necessarily that you draw with that color because it's cool. You're drawing with that color because of how hard that lead, or how hard or soft that lead is, right? And that's why I drew with the indigo blue, because it had the right amount of hard and soft. It's just the right on that marker paper, right? And there's a couple others that work pretty well, but you have to do your research and find those and see what works for you. But I'm just telling you why I went graphite here. In addition to that, I wanted to. I was thinking of the old monster movies, the original three. Um, Dracula, um, Frankenstein, and Wolfman, and I wanted to draw in black and white. I wanted to feel like I was working on a black and white film. Um, And so I tried a lot of different things. This is one of the funnest projects, if not the funnest project that I've ever worked on, uh, just because of the process and how they let me go. That one talk that I had with Andy at the beginning before I started this project is probably the only time I spoke to him on the entire project. And not that that is cool, right? I'm not saying that because actually he is really fun to work with. Uh, and work for. He's a really cool guy. As far as clients go, very cool. And he has a good imagination, and his ideas are pretty specific when he wants something. So, um, a lot of fun to work with. Um, a rare combination, honestly. But we didn't need to talk. They just kept on telling me to keep going. There was no real art direction outside of that. And I'll show you where I started to try to get a little bit more on the production side, and then was immediately uh, moved off of that and told to go, no, 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 we just want you to keep on drawing what you were doing, which is this here. So, okay, so back to the project. Uh, Here I'm just trying to find how crazy Pennywise could get, right? Straight out of the gate. And in a cartoony way, right? I mean, the character has obviously got these kind of childish kind of proportions, or childlike proportions, I should say. Uh, and there's no back or front to this character. I gave him this design of this with this corrugated kind of ribbed kind of costume, right? So that way I could extend the limbs or retract them, and that goes with the torso. Anything that this character could change on a at will. There's nothing that would restrict this character, and this is going with what I was actually describing earlier about cartoony characters not having joints, right? So that was some of the thinking behind it. Uh, so that means that I could get pretty freaky with this character, which um, was a heck of a lot of fun. I mean, the character could, the head essentially is amorphous, and so is the body. But I would use this costume for it to squash and stretch and move and grow limbs everywhere. The head could retract, um, and again, these are all examples of what I was thinking, right? Where the head is amorphous and the body could actually move, and the limbs could grow out of one little crack, you know what I mean, between in the ribbing, and then there would be a whole other set of limbs that could grow out of that. The head could retract and completely get sucked into the neck hole, um, and then push its way out from one of the other um, through one of the other seams. You know what I mean? In the ribbing there, and in that way, it was a little bit T2, right? But with it's not liquid metal. I mean, this is using the cloth, and a little bit like the thing, right? So, and I had this idea that maybe the character would just appear this way at times, right? He wouldn't change. This is the way he would show up, right? And maybe this corrugated cloth, he would, come out and his head would just pop out, and there he would be, right? In this half kind of realized, um, version of himself, right? And the arms are, on one side of the body, like a halibut. Everything's on one side, right? Um, the dead lights, uh, or pre-dead light, but this is just to get that shape working. Um, One of the things that I got to do is that I created my own. Um, I was actually making tools for me to draw, and I made my own graphite pouch out of a thermal shirt that had, high texture on it. And so when I poured all the graphite in there and made my little pouch, and tied it in a little sack, that had enough texture on it to where it could feel like a brush, or if I rubbed it on the drawing enough, I could get this really smooth kind of these gradations. A lot of fun. I mean, honestly, like I said, this project was a lot of fun because there was invention happening not only with the character, but also with the tools that I was using. I was just playing around with stuff, and it was a honestly, I felt like I was drawing for myself for this entire project. This is the kind of stuff I would like to draw for myself, just because it's an exploration in form transitions, and a character as my canvas, right? So I have one character, and I'm just now just exploring the character and using it as a study in form and form transition, which is where I really like to live in everything that I do. So this was just good times. Here the character is literally face down, but the head points back up, right? Because again, the head is amorphous, and the body is, it can bend forward or backward. Again, a little bit like T2, not but not that liquid kind of, ultra amorphous kind of character. It would be a hard transition. So since the he would have uh, the arms here, this is all an illusion, right? That it's a character that has a head and two arms, right? And so what I was thinking is that at a certain point, right, he could have multiple arms come out, and this head is an illusion too. So the eyes and mouth could open up anywhere it wanted, right? And I thought that would be really, really bizarre and really neat, and really hadn't been seen before to that degree, right? It means something else because it's on this cartoony type of, you know, character, a clown, uh, which is ridiculous. But then you contrast that with this horror, and it makes it really, really fun. Um, Very cool. Again, more explorations, multiple eyes. Uh, he's losing uh, he's losing control here. And an exploration for how he would fold himself up. I like this drawing a lot. He Because it looks like it's a hard fold. You know what I mean? Like a taffeta or some really thick material that you know, and you can see it folding, and he's pushing himself around and unfolding like really heavy cloth, but it's an actual creature. A lot of fun. Here, this is actually, these are, most of these drawings are actually designs for uh, what would be the end of Pennywise at the end of the first movie, right? Not It Chapter 2, but It Chapter 1, when the kids are beating him at the end and he tries to disguise himself as Georgie. And uh, so I had where, they beat his head, with pipes, and then he would push his body out to the other side. And so his head is, being blown out of his butt essentially like a balloon, right? And I thought that would be really cool. I wish they had done more of that actually, where he was blowing his head out of different parts of the body and resetting himself in a different orientation. Um, but depending on where in the movie, because I don't know where the opportunity for that would have been, but still, I think even if they had done it at least once or a couple times, I think it would have established it pretty well in the memories of people. Sketch for the end when he's finally just uh, he stops trying and he's a creature, man thing. And this isn't who he is either, but just the idea of him and this corrugated uh, kind of looking tube stuff, right? That is his. He's made of its cloth, but it's all that ribbing. It ends, and he's all smooth up here, and he looks like this weird Spider Man. I mean, it'll kind of connect to the second film, right? Because he becomes a spider. So I already kind of had that stuff in my head, thinking that they were going to go to It Chapter 2, but I wasn't sure. So I knew enough to know that there was a connection there, and I wanted to, um, I don't know, I wanted to allude to it to some degree here. And here he is, that like in that one drawing up here, where his head gets sucked into the neck hole, and is pushed out of his backside, and then he reorients himself, but multiple limbs come out, and it's total chaos, right? So these were sketches. Like this is a sketch for what I'm going to show you coming up right now, and so is this. So I boarded out this sequence of when Pennywise shows up as Georgie. Of course, I didn't know that it was going to be a much younger boy than this. I just threw a young kid in there, and the other guys around with poles, and they're beating him, and he's down on the ground here. Um, and then his head starts to suck in here. It's starting to fold in at the top. Uh, then it goes in. Here's that drawing, and it head sucks in, blows out through the back, and he's resetting his orientation here and how his structure is, and then he starts pulling, shooting limbs out everywhere, and then he stands up in total arrogance, and they squash their fears and continue to beat the hell out of him. Uh, and here he is as a creature. Uh, he's trying to hold on, but he's freaking out and he's trying to shoot his head out of another place here. But they're still beating on him. And so I did these. They were in production. They had hired these contortionists, and they were, they would stand on top of each other and walk on the floor backwards. They did a lot of really interesting things. They sent me the photos. Um, and so I understood from that is that maybe they wanted me to use them and draw some production type drawings to see if it would work in a practical way. Um, and so I did these drawings. But I mean, they look like what they are, right? I mean, they look very much like I'm trying to make something out of a person, right? Work rather than the design flowing, uh, right, and being free of, uh, I guess, this restriction of having actors playing there, right? Which you can get free of. Well, it's about manipulating space, right? When you have an actor in a suit, so a lot of people don't know how to do that anymore. There's a couple shops that still play well, but even back in the day, in the heyday of makeup shops, makeup effect shops, they didn't all know how to do this well. You would get really big, clunky hand gloves or creature hands because they would make the sculptures too thick. They didn't know how to finesse and get right up to the actor's hand and play with that the relief from the surface enough. Everything was very heavy-handed at certain shops. There were only a couple shops that really knew how to play with that because they were just a higher end shop, and that's just the way it was. So if that was kind of hard in the heyday of makeup effects, nowadays, forget about it. Um, there's very few. Um, but all that being said, uh, so it would be more likely that it would look very contrived if we did it in a practical way than if we had done it uh, all CG at this point, right? We could use both, where we would have elements, puppets and stuff, and you can mix everything together and probably get the best result that way instead of going all CG, um, because there's problems with CG, obviously. Also, I mean, you have a lot of technicians trying to make something look good, um, and they don't have artistic eyes. And I'm saying that straight across the board. They don't. They think they do, but they don't. And they'll argue till they're blue in the face, but they're arguing from a point from where they're standing, which is in a non-creative space. I mean, there is no argument, but it becomes an argument, and I don't get it. All that being said, uh, so the best combination is using both, right? I think, and uh, so this experiment, I was really quickly moved off of this and moved back on to doing drawings again. And so this drawing and the next couple, these are all based on a drawing that Andy had done himself, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, it just all the information is there. That's what I like about his drawings. He knows what he wants, and when he puts it in his little scribbles that he does, they're fantastic. Um, they set the whole thing up for you to essentially, as an artist, as a creative, to be able to have a lot of fun and swim in that space without any restriction because you know where your anchor is, right? You know that he really likes this, this drawing that he had done. That's him. That's his voice right there. You go, okay, so that is my anchor. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to swim around this creatively, and there's a lot of freedom in that. So here, these drawings are for the end of Pennywise when he get just before he gets thrown into the well of it, chapter 1. You can see that in this one, he is the man clown character. That now his body is like literally coughing up everything that he is, and he's going to be regurgitating it out of his mouth and just unfolding in this desperate last ditch effort to find some uh, control of what is there, and he can't. So at the same time that he's trying to control the situation, he can't. He's desperate. So it's like a cuttlefish desperately trying to find the right pattern. Um, so that's what all this is coming up here. And here is the beginning of what I was thinking. So after they bash in his head, he stands there desperately looking at all the kids, right? And his head uh, gets sucked into his neck hole, and the collar turns to all these fingers, and he blows balloons out of his head, uh, right? And it's just nonsense at this point. Uh, and one thing to note is that these red balloons, this is not a red color as much as it could have been stained with blood, right? What that is what I was thinking. And these white balloons are like be like organs, possibly. Uh, you know. Uh, so this is horrific, right? Very intestinal with these balloons, even though they look just like balloons, right? But that was my idea behind this stuff. So these would pop. Then he would push his head out of the collar, right? And now it's just this all this filigree, and this head starts from the inside of the mouth, and this is Andy's idea, right? I just designed the build up to it, which is this thing that Andy came up with. And here, the character would just start regurgitating itself in concentric kind of circles, folding back, down the body, not unlike a cuttlefish trying to find a pattern. Uh, and it's desperate at this point. And this is right before he gets thrown into a well. He coughs up, maybe some hands reaching out, then they go back in. Eyes are everywhere, coming up. He can't make there's no head anymore. It's just fingers are all over the place. Uh, you know, childish things like this chicken wing type shape back here, and all the cloth is torn and looking tattered. Um, you know, a giant mouth now, you know, around the waist. A giant eye of a head this kind of head kind of comes out and then opens its mouth, and an eye comes out, and then this eye hole would open up and turn into another mouth. It's just nonstop. It's going and going and going, right? Eyes are opening up. Here's a chicken wing based on Andy's drawing. I was laughing when I saw that thing. Uh, and here he is, desperate, standing in a desperate pose, defeated. There's Andy's drawing. You know, there's a chicken wing. I asked him, I go, that's a chicken wing? He goes, yes. Just nonsense. And okay, that sounds good. Um, Neat drawing though, right? Look, everything is here, right? Uh, so it was easy for me to work on this version of the character. And there I took his drawing and just realized it a little bit more. Uh, and a little bit more even. And I was thinking this is right before he goes down the hole, and that even coughs up these tentacles, right? He's looking skeletal, and he's looking very Cthulhu-esque here, and all these eyes open up, you know, and this scrotal-looking shape here. He's perverse, attacking kids, right? So something very, very much darker and evil now is finally, you know, being exposed here about this character. Um, and then they push him off into the hole. Yeah, so that's all I have for chapter one. This, again, this project was one of the funnest projects, if not the funnest project that I've ever worked on. Um, anyway, I was hoping even to do more, believe it or not, on this project. I was very sad when it ended. Um, but they did bring me back on chapter two, and that will be the next creature talk after this. To keep it in a reasonable time so people can actually watch these, I decided to chop it up into two separate creature talks. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments, and if you can give me a like, because it helps for the algorithms to pick it up. Um, I'm not vain, and I don't need um, all that approval. It's just to keep all this stuff, you know, alive online in the interwebs. Um, and but if you do let me know that you're liking it, it does encourage me to want to keep on doing these, because honestly, uh, I am a solitary person and I like being by myself and drawing, you know, on my drawing table. And I'm kind of just coming out of my hole here to do these. Um, I do like talking about the work that I do because I put a lot of thought into it. Um, and it's never shared in any of the making ofs. They just do their commercial books and interviews, and it's always about the actors and about everybody but the designers and all the work that we put in. When these are the plans, right, for the movie, but the plans are never ever discussed. And I think people have an interest in wanting to hear about this. I mean, I know that I would have when I was a kid, right, back in the day. Uh, so there it is, and there it is. Thanks.